Alright guys, welcome back to the next episode in our Piston series here. If you haven't been watching the first couple of videos, basically we've done our takeoff, our run-up, or we did our before start, we did our run-up, took off, I got you up in a climb phase, and then we leveled off into cruise. And just one little side note about cruise, about the cowl flaps. I was going through some of my notes here and I actually noticed that the cowl flaps are to be closed 100 feet prior to level off. And if the CHT is above 430 Fahrenheit, then we'll go ahead and just keep them open or at half until they cool down a little bit up at cruise. So unless you're above 430 CHT, go ahead and close those cowl flaps 100 feet prior to level off. That'll also help you increase your speed to cruise. All right, so we're up here, we've been cruising along, and basically what I did is I just moved the airplane south of our destination. Now we're going to talk about stage cooling and preparing for our descent into Ukiah Municipal Airport. Now, a couple things we have to talk about before we can get going, and I'm going to keep the sim paused because I don't want to get too close. As you can tell now, we are only about 30.4 miles from our destination, cruising at 8,500 feet at our 20... Looks like we're closer to 2,200 RPM now, which is fine. And our EGT, so our fuel flow is set. So things are looking good. But if you remember the turbocharger video, we talked about how much heat is actually being created inside of these engines. Now, at night, you can actually see, I don't believe it was on the left engine, because I think the turbocharger is actually on the left side of the engine, but I do recall for a fact on the number 2 engine you could actually see the turbocharger begin glowing at night. You would see a little red glow inside this little vent here, which was really cool to see that. But I don't recall if it was on the left side or on the left engine. I want to say that the turbocharger is mounted on the left side of the engine itself, so it would actually be over here. That's why you wouldn't be able to see it from the pilot seat. But you could definitely see it over here. So anyway, the point is the engine is really hot. The turbocharger is really hot. A lot of energy going on in there. So we have to do something that's called stage cooling. We have to gently decrease the manifold pressure until we have reached a certain set of parameters be completely stage cooled. So the rule of thumb is you can reduce 2 inches of manifold pressure every 2 minutes. So we have our little clock over here, and you would just keep an eye on that. You'd give we're at 20, well in this case we're actually at 27 inches, which is fine. So we're going to go from 27 inches down to 25 inches, and we're going to wait 2 minutes. Now we can do that all the way down to 18 inches of manifold pressure. Once that happens, we can consider the engine stage cooled, and we are free to manipulate the throttles as necessary for landing. The other window we could meet is our cylinder head temperature below 300 degrees Fahrenheit. So right now you can see our CHT, our cylinder head temp, is actually about 410. So we'd have to be below 300 in order to consider the engine stage cooled. The last window we can meet is our indicated airspeed. An indicated airspeed at or below 120 knots will also signify a stage cooled engine. So we can meet any one of those 3 windows. 18 inches manifold pressure, below 300 CHT, or below 120 knots. So until we meet one of those windows, we have to continue to stage cool on our descent. Now, consequently, that's going to make our descent a little bit longer than just bringing the power to idle and diving and driving down to the ground. So we're going to do a little simple math. We're going to take our cruising altitude, 8,500, and we're going to subtract it from our pattern altitude. If I come over here to our airport, I click on Ukiah, I know the details. The aircraft is 612 feet above sea level. Make sure your altimeter is properly set, 290902, so you have proper MSL reading on your altimeter. Traffic pattern altitude for this airport is 1,000 feet above field. So we know field elevation is 612 plus 1,000, 1,600 feet. We take 8,500, subtract that from 1,600, we come up with 6,900 feet. Now for simple math, I'm a pilot. Pilots like simple math. Let's round that up to 7,000. 7,000, drop the zeros, multiply it by 3. We're going to pretend it's a 3-to-1 rule. 7 times 3 equals 21. That means our descent at a 3-degree glide path approximately is going to be 21 nautical miles. Now, another way you can look at it if you don't like the 3-to-1 rule is you can pretend or anticipate a descent rate of 1,000 feet. I like whole numbers. 1,000 feet is pretty easy to do. We've got plenty of airspeed here. The aircraft can go pretty fast. So if we plan on 1,000 feet per minute descent rate, and we're going to descend 7,000 feet, we know that would take 7 minutes. The aircraft is traveling at about 167 knots over the ground. Now we have to use ground speed for this calculation. If you want to use this method for your descent, there's a couple of ballpark windows. We know 120 knots is going to be 2 nautical miles per minute, and 180 knots is going to be 3 nautical miles per minute. So we figure if we start descending, our ground speed is probably going to increase a little bit, so we can confidently say we'll be pretty close to 180 knots in this aircraft at 3 nautical miles per minute. So if it's going to be 3 nautical miles per minute, we said it's going to take 7 minutes to descend at 1,000 feet per minute. 7 times 3, look at that, 21 nautical miles to descend. So you can use either method you want. I prefer the 3-to-1. Multiply it times 3, boom. That's your basic 3-to-1 glide path descent, 21 nautical miles. However, that does not take in count stage cooling. So for stage cooling, I'm not going to give you guys a specific window. Just know you're going to want to add approximately 5 up to 10 nautical miles extra for stage cooling. So I'm going to cut that right in half. We're going to take 7 nautical miles. 7 nautical miles, add that to our 21 nautical mile descent, is going to be 28 nautical miles for our top of descent. So I'm going to unpause the sim, and I'm going to select direct to Ukiah, activate, and our direct to track is 329, so we're going to go ahead and come left to 329, and we are at 29.7 and decreasing. So we said 28 nautical miles. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the autopilot button here ready to go. Actually, before that, remember we were always burning on our outboard tanks. If you have not switched to your inboards yet, just as you start your top of descent, this is the time to do so. So we're just about ready to start top of descent. Let's go fuel pumps on. Switch to the inboard tanks. And right fuel pump off. Verify pressure is holding. Left fuel pump off. We're at 28 miles. Let's go ahead and I'm going to turn altitude off, and I'm going to go ahead and mash the down button 3 times here. And we're going to see what kind of descent rate we get. I'm also going to bring back 2 inches of manifold pressure. Let's do 25 inches of manifold pressure. I want to descend a little bit faster. Let's go ahead and try to get about 1,000 foot per minute descent rate dialed in. Now, this is where we have to be pilots. So, all these calculations and math is good if you're flying somewhere completely flat. As you can tell, we obviously have some terrain below us, so you may have to adjust your descent rate accordingly. If you find that your descent rate that you calculated at a 3-to-1 glide path or 1,000 feet per minute is going to put you a little bit too close to terrain, shallow up your descent rate and maybe start a little bit earlier. So that's just where being a pilot and experience is going to come in. You have to look at your surrounding areas. I can't just give you one formula for every situation that you're going to find. I just give you the basics so you can manipulate it and use it as you wish. Alright, so I should have looked at the time there. I think it was right about at the 6. So we're going to wait 2 minutes until we go another cool down. At this time, we would go ahead and get the ATIS information and the weather, and make sure our altimeter is set to our elevation of 29902, or I'm sorry, our inches of manifold 29902. And we can go ahead and turn on our recognition lights and our wing lights. You can turn them all on. I prefer to keep our landing and taxi lights off until we actually lower the landing gear and get cleared to land. So if you follow my Airbus series, I also talk about, cleared approach, clear to land when talking to tower. But if you're flying freight, you may not even be talking to tower, so you could use these as a landing checklist. Alright, descent checklist is complete, and then landing checklist is complete. Use them as reminders. As long as the nose gear is in the well, you're not going to be getting any lights on anyway. Alright, we're starting down. There was 1 minute. We're going to wait 1 more minute. We're about 20 miles out. As soon as we get to the 6 here, we're going to go ahead and start another power reduction. As you are descending in altitude, go ahead and inch your mixtures forward just a little bit as well, about every 1,000 feet, just to keep your engines happy, because we leaned them out for up at altitude, and then as we descend back down, we know we want to get more fuel because we have more air. So after you leaned them out for cruise, you're going to be increasing that mixture just about 1,000 feet, every 1,000 feet or so. Okay, there is 2 minutes again. Let's go ahead and bring our manifold pressure back down to 23 inches. So we went from 27 to 25, and now we're going to go to 23 inches. And we're got about another minute, 45 seconds. So after we got all of our descent calculations going and we're coming down, and we said, hey, when we descend, we're probably going to increase our ground speed. We sure have, 187 knots. So we're doing just over 3 nautical miles per minute, which that's pretty good. Our descent checklist will be completed at this time, and make sure you have your fuel to inboard tanks. Once you've completed that, go ahead and turn on your taxi light if you wish. In the Navajo here, we can probably go ahead and turn on our seatbelt signs as well if you're pretending to have passengers. All right, 1 more minute until our next pool of the stage cooling. Now you can tell here that I'm not following my course directly to the airport either, because here's my CDI, I'm slightly deflected. I don't want to go over these mountains, right? Got to be a pilot, so I'm going to go ahead and correct a little bit to the right. I'm going to stay in this valley here. I'm flying VFR. I'm not violating any airspace, so I'm going to go ahead and stay in this valley, stay away from these mountains here. All right, just about another 20 seconds or so, and we can go ahead and reduce power to 21 inches of manifold pressure. Let's take a look at our CHTs. They are not quite below 300 yet, so we're going to keep on stage cooling. All right, there's 2 more minutes. We're going to go ahead and we'll go from 23 all the way down to 21 inches of manifold pressure now. We got 2 more minutes. Now, this is where if I was cruising properly at 26 instead of 27, I would only have 1 more pool left for a stage cooling. But since I was going a little bit faster, my stage cooling is going to take a little bit longer. Just below 180 knots now, so now we're doing slightly less than 3 nautical miles per minute. We're about 10 miles from the airport now. We can start to see it over here. We're just going to enter a left-hand downwind at midfield, 45-degree entry, and set up for our traffic pattern. All right, there is 2 more minutes. We're going to go ahead and bring it right back down to 19 inches of manifold pressure. Now, if you want to cheat a little bit, maybe you feel like you're getting a little bit fast, bump your RPMs up to 2400-ish. That'll help you slow down just a little bit as well. I'm going to keep flying the aircraft on a 45-degree entry to the downwind. I've got about another minute and 15 until the aircraft is completely stage cooled. I look over here at my CHTs. I'm still above 300, so I can't use my cylinder head temperature today. All right, I'm approaching 2,500 feet, just about 1,000 feet to level off. This is when you would make your calls if you're coming into a non-towered airport such as this. Ukiah traffic, AM flight 202, entering left downwind on the 45 for runway. What do we have? I think we're going to land on runway 15. All right, we are getting ready to level at 1,600 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease my rate of descent to below 500 feet per minute. And here comes 2 minutes. All right, I can bring the throttles back now. So now I'm actually at 17 inches. I can consider the aircraft stage cool, and I got to go ahead and hit altitude hold here. to main at pattern altitude. So the aircraft has been stage cooled. I can manipulate the throttles as necessary. If you were going to be doing an instrument approach here, we would set our cowl flaps to half. I'm going to go ahead and leave them closed for now, but if you were setting up for an instrument approach, you would go ahead and set them to half. Alright, we're at traffic pattern altitude, about 3 miles from the airport here, as you can see that on our GPS. We're going to land on runway 15, so what I like to do is I take the OBS knob here and I spin it to 150, and add a little bit of power back in. Try not to get too crazy on the power, because you do have your engines nice and stage cooled. Alright, 150 there. Get rid of the GPS CDI. I don't need that. And we are entering on the downwind. We're approaching the traffic pattern now. Just about ready to enter the downwind. We're going to go ahead and execute our for-landing checklist. We're going to go ahead and get the remainder of our lights on, except the landing light. And we'll go ahead on recognition. Pitot heats come on. Pumps come on. And we're going to go ahead and enter the downwind. So we're 1,600 feet at traffic pattern altitude. We're going to turn to enter a left downwind for runway 15. So now that your engines are stage cooled, you want to be careful with the throttle. You don't want to be trying to go too high on the manifold pressure now. As we enter the downwind here, we're about 100 feet low. So let's go ahead and get back up to traffic pattern altitude. Now, to tell if your distance is adequate for the traffic pattern, look at the runway and look at your fuel cap. If your runway is going underneath your fuel cap, that means you're at the right distance at the right altitude. So as we approach the touchdown zone for the runway that we're going to land on, we're going to go ahead and walk that throttle back out to about 15 inches. Let the aircraft start at descent rate. And let's go ahead and add flaps 1. The aircraft's going to balloon a little bit as we get the flaps out, so I'm going to bring that manifold pressure back almost all the way back there. We're looking for about 100 knots here as we get ready to turn base on a visual approach. 500 feet per minute, we're looking good. As the runway gets to our left shoulder, just behind our left shoulder, we're going to go ahead and start our turn to base and lower the landing gear. Ukiah traffic, this is AMP Flight 202, turning a left base for runway 15, Ukiah. Alright, we're 100 knots now, gear is down, get a little bit of trim in there, don't sink too much, the landing gear is really draggy. About 500 feet per minute here. And as we're rolling out on base, let's go ahead and go flaps 2. Get that nose forward a little bit, get ready to catch that ballooning effect. And we can go ahead and turn final now. Ukiah traffic, this is AMP Flight 202, turning final, runway 15, Ukiah. As we turn final, we want to make sure everything is complete here. Let's go ahead and turn our landing light on. Pitot heats are on, pump is on, gear is down. We're going to leave our props 2,400 RPM or 2,300 RPM, whatever you had it set for cruise. Rolling out on final, right on the glide path there, 100 knots airspeed. And let's go ahead and go flaps full. As you add flaps full, the aircraft is going to really start to get draggy, so get ready for that power increase there. Want to maintain just about 95 to 100 knots as we come down. As we cross the threshold, we're going to close the throttle and just let the airplane come down nice and gentle. Alright, we're going to begin to close the throttle. Just set her down. That landing was pretty flat on my part there. After touchdown, props come full forward. Holding aft on the stick, a little bit of brakes. And we're going to go ahead and make this next turn off. So that landing was a little bit firm. I didn't quite get the flare that I wanted to. We're going to go ahead and exit the runway here before we reconfigure the aircraft. Make sure whenever you are getting off the runway here, you want to make sure that you cross the runway hold bars there. We want to make sure we cross them and get on the safe side so other people can use the runway. As we clear the runway here, let's go ahead and begin our after landing flow. We'll go ahead and turn all our lights off, leave the taxi light on, leave the anti-collision on, the recogs can come off, pitot heats come off, fuel pumps come off, flaps come up, transponder goes into standby mode. Cowl flaps open. Go ahead and open both your cowl flaps now that the aircraft's on the ground. And we can do an after landing checklist. Welcome to Ukiah, and go ahead and prop our window open there. It gets toasty. So something really cool that I wanted to show you guys is this window behaves just like it does in the real thing. So at slow speeds like this, and the slipstream from the propellers, you can keep it open. But as you increase speed, this is how you know you're taxiing too fast. But it would actually create a vacuum and close the window. That's how you know you're taxiing too fast, if your window is open. So as you slow the aircraft back down, the window should stay open. So that's actually true to real life as well. You get a little too much airflow going back there, there is a vacuum and it will close that window. Alright, our after landing checklist is complete. And we're going to go ahead and park it right here on the ramp. We'll go ahead and get that taxi light off as we come onto the ramp. Remember, if you're making tight turns like this, that differential throttle is really going to help you out. So I'm going to just use my right throttle here as I swing it around. Careful not to hit the fence line. A little bit of differential braking. And we are just about right on the line. Oops, I want to set the parking brake. Brake is set, and now we can go ahead and shut her down. So to properly shut down this aircraft, we want to make sure we turn our avionics off first. We're going to come up here, turn off our seatbelt sign if you have them. Make sure everything has been completed. And we're going to go ahead and bring the mixtures to idle cutoff. As soon as the engine stops running, go ahead and turn our magnetos off. Our anti-collision light can come off. Alternators off. And battery 1 and 2 off. Well, there you have it, guys. Welcome to Ukiah. The aircraft is now safely on the ground. We can go ahead and open up our doors. This is a custom livery that I'm working on here. This is a Ameriflight livery. Same cargo company I used to fly for. So maybe I'll put that out on the store for you guys. But there you go. That is our visual approach and landing from the cruise phase. Now, in this next episode, I'm going to show you how to do an instrument approach in the Navajo. There's a couple different things that we do differently when we're flying an instrument approach. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I apologize for the little firm touchdown there. I kind of ran out of airspeed there. I got a little bit slow, and the airplane just really wanted to settle. So there's two ways to land with those flaps there. Some guys wait till actually crossing over the end of the runway to go full flaps, because once you get that full flap down, you're really going to drop out of the sky when you close that throttle. So sometimes they wait till they're just above the touchdowns or the end of the runway, full flaps, close that throttle, and just gently set her down. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you on the next one.